Hi, my name is Terry Lynch. I'm the CEO of Power Nickel, and I'm here today with Ken Williamson, who's the Managing Director of 3D Geo. Ken did the Geological 43101 work for us that was just released today on our Nisk Nickel project in just south of James Bay, Quebec. We're going to talk to you about that project today. It's exciting news that we've produced for the market. Merlin, over to you.
Terry, great. Good to speak to you again.
Good
Ken,
to talk to you.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
I last spoke to you in early April. 3 months have passed. I was impressed with the geology of the Nisk project and the way that you were going about it. Today, you've just put out your maiden resource estimate. Could you tell me a little bit about the resource estimate? How many meters it took you to drill it? What data went into it, and what came out of it in tons and grade?
So the release for today is quite exciting to me. What we've ended up with, what we ended up with as final numbers here for that current mineral estimate is a split between an open pit resource and an underground resource, for which we did define indicated and inferred resource for both mining methods. And that engineering work has been done by Innovexplo, who took the lead calculating the different economic parameters and things like that required to define a Whittle pit shell, which is an optimized pit shell, as well as DSO work, which is Deswick shape optimizer, for the underground mining method. And all this combined together, we're ended up with an open pit scenario using a cutoff grade of 0.33 nickel equivalent, 0.33% nickel equivalent, having indicated resource there of about 900,000 tons of material that grades at 0.87 nickel equivalent. And then inferred resource in the open pit at just over 1.04% nickel equivalent for 67,000 tons. There and underground, the cutoff grade is kind of triple that number. So we're using their cutoff grade of 0.91, giving us 1.7 million tons of indicated material at 1.37% nickel equivalent, and close to 1.4 million tons of inferred material at 1.3% nickel equivalent. So those numbers in terms of percent nickel equivalent are super interesting. It's, I would say, amongst the different deposits I have looked at, it's pretty high grade material.
So hang on, let me just unpack that, because I'm kind of slightly overwhelmed by numbers.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's absolutely fine. So in essence, there's the vast majority of the open pit is in the indicated category, and you've got about 900,000 tons falls into an open pit. And that's got a nickel grade of a nickel cutoff of 0.3, a nickel grade of 0.53, more or less,
yes,
with contributions from copper and palladium and a little bit of cobalt. And that gives you your nickel equivalent of
absolutely. And you would add palladium to that mix as well.
Yeah. So nickel equivalent of just under 0.9%. So it's 900,000 tons at about 0.9%. And this is all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is all sulfide. There's no oxide in here.
Absolutely, it's sulfide ore.
So this should make a nice concentrate.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you've got 900,000 tons in your first resource in the open pit, and you've got a split of. And I know the Toronto Stock Exchange doesn't like doing this, but if you add up your inferred and your indicated, it's just over 3 million tons, and it's 3.1 million tons.
Almost 4.
Sorry,
Almost
is that
4? Yeah.
Hang on, you've got 1.7 plus 1.4.
No, we got total indicated for the open pit combined with the underground.
No. I'm just talking about the underground. Oh, the underground.
Underground
is
yes.
1.7 indicated and 1.3 inferred. You put those together, you've got 3.1 million tons, more or less.
Right, underground.
Which is your underground resource category.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not quite half split between indicated and inferred, but much more even in its split than the open pit, which is 900,000 tons, which is almost all indicated.
Yeah.
So if you add your total tonnage resource, you're about 4 million tons at a variety of different cutoff grades and a variety of different grades. But essentially, this is looking like pretty healthy nickel grade.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How much drilling have you done how much drilling has, under Power Nickel has gone into this resource? Or in fact, not just under Power Nickel, but how much drilling in total has gone to define this resource?
We're looking at not even 70 drill holes altogether. The exact numbers are as follow. Just a little bit over 66 holes total, out of which we had 59 historical holes and 7 recent holes that were drilled by Power Nickel. And we had explained back the first time we spoke together what was the rationale behind those 7 holes, which basically was to confirm and expand and infill, I guess, all of this together with only 7 holes, trying to confirm that historical resource that we had, and then move on presenting what we are doing today. Ultimately, so all in all, we're talking just over 15,000 meters of drilling, out of which I can't recall the exact number that we drilled with those 7 holes, but it was 2,400 meters of drilling that were added very recently, and those 7 holes allowed us to pretty much resurrect, I would use that word, that historical resource, and bring it back to a current full-blown resource here.
That's a capital efficient way of drilling, is revalidating historic data.
Absolutely, yeah.
So your discovery cost on Nisk has been very low.
Super low.
Was there a discovery cost?
Yeah, exactly. And so someone else paid for it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's, to me, is even better in the sense that we knew it was there. The confidence level was super high to start with, to tell you the truth. But the regulation being the regulation, we couldn't just suppose things. We had to confirm and validate and do that whole thing, which was, at the end of the day, a super successful process for us. And we were anticipating little glitches here and there, but no, not really. Everything was super clean in terms of historical data, and the foundation of the project was very, very robust to start with. So
remind me of 2 things, please. One is, what your 7 holes that you put in, you must have had excuse me, you must have had encouraging signals about the continuity of mineralization between drill holes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, first, due to the nature of the deposit itself, I guess it was fair enough to anticipate off the bat a really strong and good continuity, geologically speaking. Just the way those deposits are being formed and developed, within the geological processes involved. So we were starting from there.
Remind me, is it a magmatic sulfide?
Yeah, magmatic sulfides with those heavy elements sinking at the bottom of the lava flow, and it's not necessarily structurally controlled. So we're talking about presence of magma and gravity doing its work realistically, and that will control the continuity of grade realistically.
And sorry, I know I shouldn't be asking these geological questions at this stage, but is it it was kind of an intrusive lava flow, or is it a kind of a settling from a batholith? I mean, does this feel like a pulse from within a bigger chamber, or is it kind of a hot kind of komatiatic kind of channel like
truth, that is a little bit of a slippery road question type here for me, in the sense that is it a sill or is it a flow that got deposited flat on land and now it's being tilted vertical because of the history of the area and things like that. to tell you the truth, I'd feel more confident telling you that I'm not sure what it is. Is it a sill or a flow or something like that? The good news is, though, for me, as a researcher as well, I'm a consulting geo, but yeah, I'm a researcher over before that, I think. I have an ex-colleague of mine who's working for the GSC now, the Geological Survey of Canada. And my old friend did his PhD study in nickel deposits. And as a matter of fact, he contacted me out of the blue recently, seeing in the news that I was working on that project. And him and I very shortly should be initiating an exchange of information, I guess. And I hope that at that time I'll know better a little bit, at least what the GSC is thinking about that deposit, and perhaps using that knowledge to enhance what we're doing in terms of work.
Absolutely. I did ask partly out of geological interest, but principally because if you know what is your emplacement mechanism and what the kind of the original geology was, it informs how you can target the next phase of drilling. It informs your exploration strategy and enables you to vector into the next pod or the next panel or the next accumulation of nickel sulfides.
Absolutely. And what I'm saying, Merlin, is not that I did not do that research. I've looked myself at different reports and articles and whatsoever else. But having the opportunity perhaps to speak live, with an ex-colleague of mine who specialized in that thing, will, I hope, gather more information at that point. But you are absolutely right. At this stage, we are using absolutely all information that is available to us to better understand that deposit. And that's one of the key thing with my own little company and the way I'm trying to run a mineral resource estimate. You'll never see from me a mineral resource estimate without a well-defined geological context. I guess no consultant are doing that regardless, but me, it's an imperative thing. I will refuse actually to release numbers if I'm not convinced that I at least understand a little bit where that thing sits, because you can't display things in an empty background to me. Anyways.
Okay, well, let's unpack the resource a little bit. You had 59 historical holes. How were you able to verify the data from those historical holes to be able to include it in a public or modern resource?
Sure.
What was that process?
The validation process itself was a little tricky. We had to group together different holes, I guess, based on when they were drilled, by whom, the way they were logged, and the way the data was captured. All of this was a tiny bit different from one phase to the other kind of thing. So we've separated that out. For the vast majority of the holes, for historical holes, it was very easy to validate, as we did have access to the old certificates from the lab, so we could confirm numbers. We had access to some of that core, so we had to look at that, verifying that the sample tags were at the right interval and things like that, like the common things. For the more difficult holes that we knew we didn't have the certificates and things like that, we actually used the 7 holes that we've drilled with Terry, using a couple of them to actually not necessarily duplicate an historical hole. Sometimes we'll do that. We'll duplicate really a hole very close. We decided to drill in between known holes of uncertain nature, I guess, just for us to confirm that the grade and thickness were there. And if we were able to confirm that, well, we didn't have the certificates, but we do have pierce points around that area that confirms that the area has the grade that it's supposed to have. So,
and that comes back to my comment about variability and grade continuity and geological structure, and presumably in a magmatic sulfide you can correlate between holes, their horizons. But although I don't know how tectonized it is, what the structural fabric is, but if it's relatively undisturbed, you can build up a kind of a deposit scale stratigraphy.
Absolutely. And that leads us, I guess, to realize that this type of deposit is very, very different than what gold deposit would be. Never I could have done what we've done in a gold deposit because it's too negative. The grade can be very erratic. So it's high grade, low grade, you don't really know. So never we would guess what gold grade is in a vein without having those numbers. With the type of deposit that Terry has in his hand, is very, very different in the sense that, yes, there is a variability in grade. I'm not telling you guys that, you drill one hole and all the other holes will be the same thickness, same grade, etc. No, there is a variability. But when you compare such a variability with gold deposits overall, that variability that we experience with the Nisk deposit is very, very low, as compared to a typical gold deposits where you'd be capping, super high grade values.
Yeah, of course.
Like we didn't have really to do that here. Everything is pretty much consistent. It varies, but stays within a bracket. So to go back to the initial question, the official answer would be we couldn't verify and validate from a lab certificate those numbers. However, we've drilled around and we get essentially the same thickness and values that was reported in the past. So who am I to not somehow trust that?
Well, especially if it fits in a geological model. I can see from the image that you've published today that there are two open pits. Well, there's a kind of a single open pit, but it kind of pulls down in two areas. Then underneath that, there are two kind of plunging chutes or panels.
Yes.
Could you give me an indication of kind of what that thickness of that panel is, and the kind of in your kind of your average thickness over your kind of mineable resource that you've published? Or is
thickness in the deposit? Well, the minimum thickness that we've imposed is a couple meters thick, and that will happen only on the sides of the deposit where we believe that some late structures have maybe displaced that flow a bit, so it's pinching out a bit. So that would be on the fringe, the east boundary and west boundary of the deposit. Inside, the average thickness would be anywhere between 10 and 15 meters or something like that.
And so amenable to long hole open stoping. I know you haven't done a kind of a PEA. I know you're not into those kinds of discussions.
No, we're not there, but obviously we're thinking about, what would be coming up. Long stope mining method would probably be best. When I look at it with the experience I have, I'm not an engineer, but seems very logical to me to go with long-hole mining for underground methodology. The thing that we haven't explored yet neither is the interaction between the pit shell and that underground leftover, if we want to call it that way, resource. There is a whole lot of optimization to be done, like at the bottom of the pit and where those stopes would be starting up. So for now, it's a very typical approach because we're not in a PEA, and it didn't really worth it spending the lots of time required to play with that, because you can't have the resource both in pit and underground. So you have to have two groups of engineering working on that at the same time, and to have a really good synergy between what the pit guys will do versus the underground guys will do. And fight together.
And there's a crown pillar you've got to accommodate as well between the two.
And then crown pillar needs to be taken into account. From the bottom of the pit, is it possible to ramp down from there, saving lots of costs? What will be the mining sequence then? Can we mine, one little pit first, pay for the underground, which will be more lucrative, perhaps, to pay for the bigger pit and then go underground after? All of those things need to be better thought of, refined, etc.
But surely that question isn't even the right time. It doesn't feel that this is the end of the resource. So presumably Power Nickel has got a phase 2 drilling plan, you're going to vector onto another pod. It might not be that this is the resource that needs to be evaluated in terms of its development options, but actually the next stage is to continue working on understanding the mineral inventory and the geometries open to the company.
Absolutely. And part of that understanding will be us targeting very, very specifically. I go back to you have 2 little pits and 2 chutes underground. It seems that there is a gap in the middle. Well, that gap exists because, technically speaking, of a little lake on surface. So it's very difficult timing-wise to find a good time in the year to drill there. The regulations in Quebec will not allow you to set up a drill summertime around such a little lake and things like that. So we're thinking about that now, trying to resolve that issue here where we have a lack of data. And when you look at the some images with the classification of resource that we did, you'll also see that indicated versus inferred follows the same geometry somehow. So it seems that we are losing grade because we don't have the drilling that supports having the grade we think there is there. So we're planning ahead to solve that right now.
Okay, so the if I can summarize, phase 1 is to target some drill holes that will lift inferred into an indicated category, and there will be some drilling presumably to add new inferred tons.
Yes, and in terms of timing, we'll do the exact opposite of that. We'll start with, I think, the lateral exploration, and then perhaps a few drill targets deeper outside still of that resource that we're presenting today. The idea is to give us a little bit more time here internally to fully digest and crunch what we've learned from that resource area. It's fresh for us too, I guess, on my side, receiving that pit shell and the DSO work for the underground things. And from there, and from that, we can learn lots of things in terms of the behavior of the deposit, how the economics are reacting to that block model we've created based on those parameters and things like that. So we now can better understand not only how the deposit reacts, but how the economics are reacting to that deposit. So now using all of that, we are in a much, much better position to pinpoint exactly where in that resource we'd like to have pierce points added, such that we can resolve some of this minor issues that we have in terms of that gap in the middle needs to be infilled. So we know now how to do that and where to poke those holes, because we have the DSO work. We won't be re-drilling the DSO work. We'll drill just outside of that, trying to expand those stopes from underground and things like that. And the same principle applies for the open pit near surface volume as well. The central portion that is below that lake could become a pit eventually, should we do something with that lake, for instance. But so far, we do not have the data to discuss about that, because there's no resource there as of yet. And if there is, it's inferred more. So we are actually trying to define what will be the best strategy for us and for Terry to actually do many, many things with the upcoming drilling. Well, expanding, confirming, and filling, discovering at the end of the day.
Will there be any emphasis on projects outside of Nisk, outside of the immediate? Have you got enough within the kind of around the fringes of this resource estimate?
Both to the west and to the east. I did refer earlier to a couple structures that are kind of probably forcing the system that we have now to pinch in both directions. We are anticipating from the geophysical data that we have, the geological information that we have surrounding the main lens at Nisk, we have really, really good indications that the Nisk panel, the main Nisk panel that we're reporting today, could be offset by those couple structures and it's a small amount of offset based on the geophysical work that we have and geo maps and things like that. So we're talking perhaps a few tens of meters or a few 100 meters, something, such that the current drilling probably have missed the offset equivalent of what we are presenting today. So now we know, well, we don't know, as we'll know when it's drilled and it's there, but we have a really, really good feeling that we know where the rest is based on the geophysical signature. It's more intense, you know, a little bit further west and further east. So to us, it's like, well, the main mineralization has been offset there. As I was mentioning before, having further scientific discussions with researchers studying that thing may confirm this, and I hope it will, or may bring up another vision that we didn't have as of yet, you know, and so we'll see from there. But right now, there's lots of room to expand that thing, especially literally speaking, and at depth as well. And why am I saying especially literally speaking? We know underground operations are more expensive. Would be nice to find little pods, you know, deeper, and expanding the Nisk main lens lot deeper. But the deeper we get, the more costly it gets as well. So,
and your cost of exploration going from extremely low cost becomes slightly higher cost.
Yes.
Whereas if you can target lateral extensions either side of those banding faults, then that also gives you some low cost potential there.
Absolutely. And from discussions I had with Terry, Terry very well understand that, and he's, you know, fully on board with us when we define priorities of targeting and the rationale behind. Terry has been really, really good with us, you know, understanding what we're trying to do and being fully supportive of that. And it's just a matter of the thing is, I think there is not many conclusions that we can reach about the Nisk deposit. I mean, we have something, and due to the nature and geometry of this, there's not many other things that we could think about doing except the good things that we just talked about. You know, it's a natural thing. It's an easy, I would say, project to deal with. So
okay, well,
that's a good thing.
Ken, thank you very much. Terry, could you perhaps outline what your plans are for the rest of the year? You know, how are you going to interact with the market and with the information coming from 3D GeoConsult? You know, what's the company plan for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, you know, we always thought, you know, getting the official 43101 was going to be critical for a lot of reasons. I met several funds that, you know, just wouldn't invest, you know, until there was an official 43101. So now we'll go back and re-engage with them. I mean, right now we're like a nano cap, like we were under 10 million as of yesterday, you know. So, you know, yet in my view, you know, with what we've got, we should be potentially 10 times that, honestly, right now. But obviously, we have to get there. You got to walk before you run. But we get there by communicating, by going to investors that are like the space and showing them the real science. You know, that we don't have to put lipstick on the pig. It's pretty much there. You can look at this thing, and either you believe in what we're doing and the execution we've shown. I mean, the fact that we're under 20,000 meters drilled, this thing, like by a lot, and we put that resource together, that's pretty efficient. So pretty exciting from a, you know, mining perspective. And this is dense rock, so we can add tons really quickly. So we're pretty bullish about what the future can hold. So we're going to try and convey that to the market. And there's sort of three options out there. The market's going to, you know, catch its footing and start to say, hey, well, these guys are the bargain of the century down here, and we should buy. And they'll get over the fear of the market conditions and general malaise out there, and the stock will move. And we would, and you know, basically the last time we did the financing at 25 cents and 40 cents when nickel was under $5 a pound, and we just had a theory, and a historical resource. So now we have, a bang up brand new 43101, nickel's over $10 a pound, and the stock's at a dime. So it is what it is. If it stays that way at a dime, what do you do? Because that's a possibility. We've all seen that happen in markets like this. So you still want to move forward. So we've got enough money to do this first round of 5,000 meters. So that's happening. What's going to happen after that? Well, two other ways forward for it. So we're talking to strategic partners.
Hang on, quick question. You say you've got 5,000 meters of drilling. When's that going to start? And is it ongoing? And when are we going to see the results from that?
So we're planning to start it in July, but then as we got the results in and got the data in, we realized, hey, we have to sort of, optimize our drilling better and make use of the intel that we've gathered to, vector in on what we want to vector in on. And be efficient with our cash, because of course, as a junior, you've got only a very small pile of cash, and you better spend it wisely, or you soon won't be business. So that's what we're doing now. So we expect that probably by mid-August, the rig's available to us, we're ready to go. So probably by mid-August we'll be drilling, and as Ken suggested, we may drill on the flanks first and then come back to the middle, just from the permitting side of things. But we'll get that done. So we would think that we would, drill from mid-August through September, probably into early October. And all the while, as we're drilling, we'll be shipping to our assayers, and we would expect probably results coming back end of September, early October to start to trickle in. And then we'll get another, update on this resource, and then another sort of look forward as to what we've got. At some point in time, we'll need more money going forward. As I said, we hope the market reacts and we can do it in the market. The other options are to do the strategic partner discussions, which we've had several of, and which will now increase because, these guys are smart. We put our data on our website because we recognize there's a lot of people that like to crunch these numbers themselves and develop their own models. And we're not trying to hide anything here. We're very transparent. We believe in what we've got, and we're happy to share that data. And so we know people are modeling it and getting the same, excitement that we are. So we'll see where that goes. I would like to have that conversation one step further. The other option for us is we would probably do a backstopped rights offering, where if the stock stayed down here in the 10-cent range, I'm not going to give it to the shorts who are trying to cover, who have been abusing us. I would rather, give the bargain to my existing shareholders and lead a backstop rights offering led by management and key shareholders. That's what we would do.
What's your shareholder register look like? How much do you, how many of the, how much of the shareholding do you actually know and can talk to? I mean, is it?
Yeah, so probably,
kind of rough percentage terms.
Yeah, so 50% of it, I can talk to in under an hour. Okay, the other 50% would probably take me all year.
Yeah,
classic. Yeah. But yeah. So that's why probably that half is probably going to come in, and the other half has to be backstopped just because they're lost in the sands of time somewhat, and they may or may not come in. But that wouldn't be so bad. And one of the things that's neat about Quebec in particular is they have amazing incentives for drilling. So we can actually, let's say X dollars. Let's say you had $1 million and you were going to do it. Well, you could do right now I guess you could basically get $1 million in the company by issuing $600,000 worth of stock. Okay, so it's like a 1.75 times. And that may go up to 2 with some recent stuff that's been done, but certainly 1.75 is there. So it can be capital efficient for us. So our plan would be get this next round done, and then we'd immediately plan to have a bigger, probably 20,000 meter program to really take it into the next level and take us, in our view, north of 10 million tons and into a commercial status. So that's sort of the short-term plan over the next 9 months.
And you say north of 10 million tons. Do you think that at 10 million tons, you're firmly on the map? That's definitely good. That's coming out of the ground. That's
if you get to 10 million tons with this type of grade, this close to surface, where we're at in this jurisdiction, that's 100% coming out of the ground, in my view. Never say never. There's no absolutes in this world, but all sorts of examples of projects like this that have been built around the world, and the world's running into class 1 nickel close to the surface in safe jurisdictions with community support. So this is, in my view, definitely happening. Great.
Well, thank you both very much for the update, and good luck in the months ahead. I mean, I look forward to seeing those kind of new drilling results. I'd be particularly interested to see what happens outside of those bounding faults. If you can tag another panel, then you're really talking, or two.
Yeah, it looks exciting. And if you look at the heat map that's on the isometric views there, you look at the grade is really attractive at depth. It gets 2 to 3% down there at nickel EQ. So it doesn't take a lot of meters of that to really set the blood boiling. So
no, especially if you've got 10 to 15 meters in your kind of thicknesses. But as I repeat, if you can get another panel or another two panels, then suddenly it's not just exciting; it's properly game on.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we'll look forward to hopefully bringing you that news in another 3 or 4 months. I guess 4 months.
Yeah, great. Look forward to it. Bring it on. Thank you both very much.
Cheers. Thanks, Ken. Bye.